What could possibly connect a battlefield disaster in Ukraine, a centuries-old religious prophecy, and a scandal involving France's First Lady? At first glance, these events seem worlds apart: military defeats, cryptic predictions, and political drama. But together, they form the opening notes of a much deeper transformation sweeping the global stage. Right now, the Ukrainian military faces a devastating encirclement, with thousands of troops cut off and its top commanders forced to confront uncomfortable truths about the war's direction. In parallel, Ukraine's leadership is cracking under the strain, with unprecedented dissent and confusion erupting at the very top. Meanwhile, a prominent religious authority has made a bold prediction about when this conflict may finally end, adding a new layer of tension and uncertainty. And as if that weren't enough, a scandal in France, centered on the president's wife, threatens to spiral into a full-blown political crisis, shaking public trust in ways that could ripple throughout Europe. These crises, separated by borders and cultures, are unfolding simultaneously, each with the potential to shift far more than just local headlines. Miss these patterns, and you risk being caught off guard by the coming geopolitical earthquake, one that could redraw alliances, upend long-held beliefs, and reshape power as we know it. Let's pull back the curtain and trace the origins and consequences of each of these flashpoints. To understand the scale of what's unfolding, we need to start where the fires burn hottest, on the embattled front lines in eastern Ukraine. Why did the recent collapse of Kupiansk and Pokrovsk send shockwaves through military circles worldwide? To understand the true magnitude, we have to look beyond the headlines and examine what just unfolded on the eastern front of Ukraine. At the heart of these events was an emergency session inside the Kremlin, called in direct response to Russia's sweeping operational successes. For the first time in months, Russian leadership showed open confidence, gathering their top generals to not only celebrate recent gains, but to set the course for future operations. What triggered this urgency? Over 10,000 Ukrainian troops are now encircled, one of the largest single losses for Ukraine in recent history. In two separate pockets, thousands of soldiers have been cut off from supplies, reinforcements, and hope of retreat. The capture of Kupiansk is especially pivotal. Kupiansk isn't just another town. It's a critical logistical hub, a crossroads for supplies and reinforcements to the Eastern Front. By seizing its bridges and surrounding the city, Russian forces have choked off vital lifelines, isolating entire Ukrainian formations and forcing them into an impossible position. What's more, Russia's military has demonstrated a new level of operational capability. Their maneuvers reveal a sharper, more coordinated force, capable of rapidly executing encirclements and denying their opponent any chance of regrouping. Simultaneously, Russian officials have pushed a new message, emphasizing humane treatment of prisoners and concern for civilian lives. This dual approach, military precision paired with humanitarian rhetoric, is designed to reshape the narrative, both domestically and on the world stage. Failing to grasp the scale of these latest setbacks means underestimating not just the direction of the conflict, but also Russia's evolving playbook. It's a mistake that could blind analysts, leaders, and even everyday observers to the realities of this war. But battlefield losses are only part of the story. What's happening inside Ukraine's own high command is nothing short of a leadership crisis, and the fallout could be far-reaching. Inside Kyiv, the mood is tense and uncertain, as cracks begin to show at the very top of Ukraine's military structure. Let's unpack how this internal turmoil might shape the future of Ukraine's resistance. Is Kyiv's leadership fighting not one, but two wars, one on the battlefield and another behind closed doors? As Russian forces tighten their grip on key fronts, Ukraine's internal command is fracturing under immense pressure. General Syrsky, Ukraine's top military commander, reportedly faced a grim reality in a recent emergency meeting. Unable to deny the scale of disaster, he demanded an end to sugar-coated reports and insisted on brutal honesty from his officers, no matter how bleak the news. This desperate call for transparency is a direct response to rising dissent within the ranks. Frustration is boiling among officers and generals, who openly object to political orders handed down from Kyiv, orders that often ignore the battlefield's unforgiving truths. Here, political image management collides with military necessity. Leadership in Kyiv, anxious to project control and resilience, has forced units to hold positions long after retreat became the only logical option. The result? Catastrophic encirclements that might have been avoided, costing thousands of lives and strategic ground. The consequences run far deeper than lost territory. Morale within the Ukrainian armed forces is crumbling. Reports suggest that some units are teetering on the edge of desertion, discipline is breaking down, and the psychological strain is mounting with each avoidable tragedy. As these internal fractures become public, the leadership's credibility is eroding. Ukrainians at home, already exhausted by war, are now confronted with the specter of failed command and shattered trust. The pressure on Kyiv's leaders has never been greater, with every misstep broadcast for the world and the nation to see. Failing to address these rifts risks more than just military defeat. It clouds the world's understanding of Ukraine's true ability to hold out and may mislead allies and observers about the real prospects for resistance. Yet, even as Ukraine's command structure seems to teeter on the brink, a new and unlikely prophecy emerges, one that could change not just perceptions, but perhaps the course of the conflict itself. In the heart of crisis, a bold prediction about the war's end shocks both soldiers and civilians. Can a prophecy influence the reality on the ground? How can a single date, mid-January in the year 2026, change the mood of an entire nation? That is the question on many lips after the unexpected prediction from Rabbi Kamenetsky. The war will end on the 15th of January, 2026. But this is not a prophecy rooted in mysticism or ancient codes. Instead, the rabbi cites respected Western analysts and influential think tanks as the foundation for his forecast. The effect of such a precise date is more than just speculation. For millions, it becomes a mental landmark, a point on the horizon to survive toward. In times of uncertainty and fear, the suggestion of an ending, no matter how distant, offers both hope and a sense of inevitability. It prompts both soldiers and civilians to psychologically prepare for a drawn-out struggle, making pain and sacrifice feel finite, even if only in theory. Yet, not everyone is reassured. A prominent Ukrainian lawmaker issued a pragmatic warning. Peace, whenever it comes, will demand a much steeper price than anyone wants to admit. The public must brace not for clean closure, but for the hard realities of negotiation, loss, and rebuilding. Such statements inject a sobering counterpoint, reminding people that war's end is not always the same as victory or justice. Still, with predictions like Rabbi Kamenetsky's circulating widely, the national debate shifts. Media, politicians, and military leaders all adjust their messaging, subtly, perhaps unconsciously, around this new narrative milestone. Even skeptical voices feel the tug. Dismissing such forecasts outright may risk underestimating their influence on morale, policy, and the decisions of those in power. If taken at face value, these predictions risk breeding complacency or false hope. Dismissing them entirely, though, ignores the very real way they shape public expectations and even elite behavior. In this high-stakes information war, symbolic dates can move minds as surely as troop movements change lines on a map. And yet, while Ukraine grapples with the psychological fallout of such predictions, a scandal in France threatens to rock the stability of another Western pillar. When personal scandal turns into political dynamite, what is really at stake for France and for the wider world? In a recent twist that has captivated both the French public and international observers, Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, appeared in official tax documents under the name Jean-Michel. This discovery reignited long-standing rumors about her gender and identity, fueling a storm of controversy across the media landscape. For years, the French press has kept a sharp focus on the Macrons, whose unconventional marriage has never quite fit the traditional mold expected of France's presidential couples. But this latest revelation has poured gasoline on the fire, polarizing the nation. On one side are those who decry the whole affair as a politically motivated provocation, engineered to destabilize the presidency. On the other, there are increasing calls for a full investigation, with some insisting that transparency must come before privacy when it comes to the nation's leaders. The stakes are no longer just personal. Legal threats have begun to fly from the presidential palace, with Brigitte Macron's lawyers warning of defamation lawsuits against those spreading unverified claims. The risk is clear. If the scandal escalates, it could trigger a political crisis at the highest levels of French government. In a country already on edge, such a crisis would threaten not only Macron's authority at home, but also France's role as a pillar of European stability. It is tempting to dismiss these stories as mere tabloid fodder. But to do so would be to ignore how, in today's volatile global landscape, even the most personal scandals can become catalysts for real political upheaval. What happens in faraway capitals does not stay there. It ripples outward, testing the strength of alliances and the trust of citizens. So what lessons can we draw from the convergence of military, political, and personal crises? And how should we, as engaged and informed citizens, respond to these challenges? Let us now step back and examine what these intertwined dramas reveal about the current state of global politics, and what responsibilities fall on us as witnesses to history. Only those who look beyond the surface noise will see which way the world is truly turning. In times like these, when headlines blur together and crises overlap, it becomes more critical than ever to step back and ask hard questions. This is not merely about understanding who gained or lost a few kilometers of territory, or which political figure is caught in scandal. The world is hurtling through a period where military maneuvers, political intrigue, and even private lives of leaders can ignite chain reactions no one fully controls. We have seen encirclements on the battlefield in Ukraine, with thousands of lives at stake. That shockwave does not stop at the front lines. It shakes the very foundation of Ukraine's military command, challenges the cohesion of its alliances, and alters the calculations of global leaders far beyond Eastern Europe. At the same time, scandals erupt in places like France, exposing just how fragile public trust has become, even in the oldest democracies. If we accept the official narratives at face value, we risk missing the deeper shifts: alliances fraying at the edges, leaders forced into corners, and societies struggling with truths that are uncomfortable to admit. The tides of history are turning not because of any single event, but because of their unpredictable intersections. Military setbacks in one part of the world can embolden or destabilize actors elsewhere. Political crises once isolated are now contagious, leaping borders with viral speed. In this new reality, vigilance is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Reason and critical thinking are our only safeguards against being swept away by noise, misinformation, or wishful thinking. Failing to engage with these events critically does not just mean being uninformed. It means risking your place as an active participant in the story of our time. The world is watching, but only a few are truly seeing. Recognize the patterns, question the narratives, and do not let the surface distract you from the currents underneath. Those who can read these signs will know which way to move as the next upheavals come.